International trade has long been, a cornerstone of economic development and globalization. Over centuries, economists have developed various theories to explain why countries trade and how they benefit. Two major schools of thought, classical and neoclassical trade theories, form the foundation of modern international economics. So here's a clear breakdown of both. Developed during the late 18th and early 19th centuries, classical trade theories laid the groundwork for understanding trade through the lens of comparative advantage and specialization. Mercantilism. The key idea here is that a nation's wealth is measured by its stock of gold and silver. The trade policy was pretty straightforward: export more than you import to maintain a trade surplus. But, a major criticism is that mercantilism discouraged free trade and economic efficiency. Absolute advantage. Adam Smith. The key concept is that a country should specialize in producing goods it can make more efficiently than others. For example, if England can produce cloth using fewer resources than France, it should specialize in cloth and trade it for wine from France, which has an advantage in wine production. So, let's talk about comparative advantage, a concept introduced by David Ricardo. The core principle here is that even if one country is less efficient in producing all goods, it should still specialize in the goods it can produce with the lowest opportunity cost. The result? Well, all nations can actually benefit from trade, regardless of absolute productivity differences. Emerging in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, neoclassical trade theories really refined those classical ideas by introducing marginal analysis, consumer preferences, and factor endowments. Now let's move on to the Heckscher-Ohlin theory. The key focus here is that trade is driven by differences in factor endowments, like land, labor, and capital. The core idea is that a country will export goods that use its abundant resources intensively and import goods that use its scarce resources. For example, a labor-rich country will export labor-intensive products. Alright, so let's dive into the factor price equalization theorem. This concept, well, it's pretty fascinating. The implication here is that free trade, in its essence, leads to the equalization of factor prices, such as wages and rents, between countries. And this happens even if the factors themselves aren't mobile across borders. It's like, leveling the playing field in a way that, might not be immediately obvious, but is certainly impactful. So let's talk about the Stolper-Samuelson theorem. Basically, this idea shows us that trade benefits the owners of a country's abundant factor, and, well, it may actually hurt the owners of the scarce factor. This means that trade can really impact income distribution within countries. Now, moving on to the specific factors model. This model points out that, some production factors like capital equipment are specific to certain industries and, honestly, they just can't easily move between sectors in the short run. Alright, let's compare the theories for a moment and look at some key differences. The classical theories mainly focus on labor productivity, while neoclassical theories are all about factor endowments like land, labor, and capital. Classical models usually assume labor is the only factor, but neoclassical models consider multiple factors of production. The key model for classical theory is comparative advantage, whereas for neoclassical theory, it's the Heckscher-Ohlin model. And just to add, technology in classical theory is kind of implied in productivity, but in neoclassical theory, the spotlight is more on resource availability, and technology is less emphasized. So, both classical and neoclassical trade theories, well, they offer really important insights into the dynamics of global trade. Classical theories highlight the power of specialization and opportunity cost, while neoclassical theories explain trade patterns based on how resources are distributed. Understanding these theories is, honestly, essential for economists, policymakers, and businesses that are engaged in international trade.